Please kindly, if you can move forward for the talk. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Oh, okay. We're ready to go. We just want to check one thing. Okay. I'd like to welcome everybody again to Goloka. And again, to remind you, next week we'll be celebrating Govardhan Puja. Very special day. Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Gopi Janaballabha Hirivadu Dhagode Gopi Janaballabha Hirivadu Dhagode Yasodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tera Manachate Yamuna Tera Manachate Jayo Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Hiri Baradhare Gopijana Vallabha Hiri Baradhare Yasodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tera Manachare Yamuna Tera Manachare Jayo Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhuba Kanya Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paravitakacharya Osuteta Satashi Shimad. His Divine Grace Abhaya Charananda Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Huidas Thakur Ki Jai. Parem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasiri Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Sayam Kunda Radhagunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavanam Ki Jai. Maturadam Ki Jai. Jagadava Sami Ki Jai. Yamunamai Ki Jai. Shrimati Lasi Devi Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namani. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharni Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschatyadeja Tarni. So Om Gana Tividanda Shah Gananjana Shalakaya Takshur and Meditam Yena Tasmai Shi Gurave Namaha. So I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with a torch light of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. So in the meantime, maybe someone can give me a Bhagavad Gita here. If we get to the Bhagavad Gita today, because I have a very important subject matter to talk about first, and I'm going to use a big word to bewilder all of you. Epistemology. Oh my God. What does that mean? It's a branch of philosophy. Okay, everyone understands? No. Epistemology basically means the study of how do you know what you know, right? And I'm going to relate this to a holiday coming up. Anyway, I'll mention the holiday in a few minutes, just not to give you a coming attraction. So I'll relate it to a holiday coming up. But how do we know anything? There are different methods of knowing things, right? There's prajaksha, seeing, but unfortunately we have what? Imperfect senses. You can see something that doesn't exist, like a mirage in a desert, or you could not see something that does exist. That happens all the time. I mean, sometimes, let's say, I leave my glasses somewhere, and I'm looking all around, and actually I see it, but I don't recognize, just looking too quickly or something like that. So seeing is one way. Another way is, let's say, hearing from people who are not perfect. So we hear different things. Another thing is village talks or whatever, stories like that. Another one is what we call fake news. I'm sure you've all heard of that before, right? Fake news, the media. You get a slant on your news. So, and there's also, history or mental speculation. There's all sorts of different ways. There's metaphors. Try to learn from metaphor. And we use metaphors in Krishna consciousness. For example, we'll say that Krishna has his energies and he's spanned everywhere. Just like the sun, there's a sun person in charge of the sun god, Vivaswan. And then you have the sun globe, And then finally you have the sunshine, which is expanded everywhere. So we use a metaphor. But those metaphors don't prove the point. They just help us see more clearly. So it's important to have, at least when dealing with spiritual subject matters, I mean, relative truths are another thing. For example, you may believe that vanilla ice cream is better than chocolate ice cream. And you may say vanilla ice cream this is an absolute truth. It's better than chocolate, or pakoras are better than halva, or something like that, right? You may make that statement. But that's a relative truth, which is all right. I mean, we're entitled to our relative truths, aren't we? But we should understand it's a relative truth. Or let's go a little bit into theology. I think this demigod is the Supreme Lord. I think that demigod, I'm not going to mention names. I don't want to offend anyone here. Actually, in the Mahabharata, there's this interesting story about a man who worshipped the demigods, but he wanted to worship a demigod that no one else worshipped, so he would get all the attention and all the blessings, right? I mean, you want blessings, but if you worship Lord Shiva, he has billions and billions and billions of unlimited numbers of followers. So what are you going to do? You'll be in trouble. You got to wait your turn. No, actually, he's great. He can actually see what's happening. But in any case, this gentleman picked one particular demigod. I won't mention his name. And he started to worship him, and he got all the benedictions, and that was his methodology. So, he took him as God. So you find so many different theological opinions around the world. And India, you probably find a greater variety of theological opinions than in the rest of the world combined, right? I mean, how many religions are there in India? Probably millions. And how many different languages? Probably thousands or tens of thousands. I think India has the greatest variety of languages and religion because it's the world's oldest culture. Regardless of what the archaeologists say that culture began in Egypt or the Middle East, along the Nile Delta, then we know, I mean, if you look culturally at India, you'll see that actually that's why it's so diverse. Anyway, so everyone has a different opinion, and then sometimes we take, instead of taking Shastra and what's called disciplic succession into account, as Krishna says in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Evam parampara praptam imam rajashayo viduhu. That this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita was originally spoke to Vivaswan Manave Praha Manorikshvakave Pravit, was originally spoken to by Krishna. To Vivaswan, and spoken to Manu, Ikshvaku, etc., and it was passed down. So you have this concept of disciplic succession of unbroken spiritual masters, and also you have the concept of what's called dharmam tu sakshad, bhagavat pranitam. What does that mean? That dharma, or absolute truth, comes from one person, and his name is Krishna. And he has expansions, Vishnu, of course. Lord Vishnu is non-different than Krishna. Advaita, Chuta, Nadir, Ananta Rupa Madhyam, Purana, Purusham, Navayovancha. He instructed Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma instructed Narada Muni. Narada Muni instructed Srila Vyasadeva. Anyway, so you have this disciplic succession, and you have the original speaker of each and every disciplic succession, who is Krishna, or one of his expansions. Like, of course, we have the Lakshmi Sampradaya, the Brahma Sampradaya, Rudra Sampradaya, and the Kumara Sampradaya. So that's how we know what we know. So now I'm getting to the point. So sometimes you go to a holy place and then you hear a lot of stories. And you're just wondering, Did it happen? Or did it not happen? Or sometimes you don't even go to a holy place and you hear all sorts of different stories from different people telling different things. Krishna did this, Krishna did that. And you wonder. I mean, of course, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of God. He can do anything. As we know, and this is from disciplic succession, he married 16,108 wives. There's no problem for him. For you, one wife, problem. You have to have a full-time job, and the wife has to have a full-time job, and the children have to have full-time jobs. Just to pay for your house. So, but Krishna, he's God. We know that Krishna can do anything. But that doesn't mean that everything that pops into your imagination, Krishna's done. There's a difference between anything and everything. There was one movie that actually depicted Krishna driving a motorcycle, actually. I'm not going to mention the name. Oh, my God, I won't mention the name. So, yes, that was the name. I know, he's an innocent young boy. He doesn't understand these things. He was been sheltered his whole life. So, there was actually a movie that depicted Krishna. Now, does Krishna ever drive a motorcycle and wear the jackets and everything? I don't know. He could. He could have 16,108 motorcycles if he likes. He could drive a Tesla if he likes. But we don't know. So our methodology of knowing what we know, let me give you another example. In the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna actually describes a little bit about himself, and then he says, Aham sarvasya prabhu matak sarvam pravartate, like that, right? The 4 nutshell verses. And then what does Arjuna say after that? He says, Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram, Paramam Bhavam, Purusham Shashvatam Divyam, Adi Devam Aham Vibhuhu, Hostwam Rishayak Sarve, Devarshir, Naradas Tata, right? Hey, you know these verses. Educated. So he says, you were the supreme abode, Param Dhamma, the supreme pure, etc. Purusham, the supreme person. Adi Devam, the original God, the original person. But then he verifies that with what? Shastra. He says, and the sages, he says, Ahustvam Rishyak Sarve, Devarshir Naradas Tata. He says, I verify it because the great sages have declared this of you, and you yourself are declaring it also. So, there's an example of disciplic succession, Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu, and the literature, the Vedic literature, and Dharmam Sakshat Bhagavat Pranitam, which basically means Dharma only comes from God, not from some theologian. So let's get into something related that I wanted to speak about today. Looks like we may not get to the Gita, so that it's very interesting that when you go to, because some of you have been in Vrindavan or haven't been at Govardhan like that, and I've been there quite a bit. Haven't been in a while because of this whole epidemic, pandemic. So you hear stories about different things. So here's one point I wanted to make, and hopefully I'm not disappointing anybody. And it's important to understand what is right and what's not right, right? So tomorrow on the Vaishnava calendar, it says, what, Bahulastami? What do most of you think Bahulastami is? What? Should I give you the bad news? I'll give you the good news first. It's a very auspicious day to bathe in Radhakund. Radhakund actually was formed by Srimati Radharani and the Cowherd Girls after Krishna had killed the Arishtashura demon, the big demon. And there's Shaimakund and Radhakund, and beautiful story that's told by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and other great personalities. Yet, if we consult Shastra, we find, not that there's, we should bathe in Radhakund on that day. That's not what I'm saying. If we consult Shastra, it's just an example of consulting Shastra, being connected in disciplic succession, and knowing what we know not by what people tell us, but what the great sages say, the pure devotees say. So, anyway, what happened many years ago, tomorrow the anniversary, is that there was, once upon a time, there was a cow. A devotee took birth as a cow. And her name was, anyone guess? Bahula. Sounds like a southern word. So anyway, her name was Bahula. And so her master put her out to pasture in a place called Bahulavan. Van means forest. It means the forest of Bahula. Somehow or other, it was either called that then or it's called that now. It's one of the main forests in Vrindavan. In Vrindavan, there's 12 main forests. And when we say Vrindavan, we're referring to the totality of what's called Braj, Mathura Mandala, just to be precise. Sometimes you say the word Vrindavan, and it just refers to one particular forest, which is the largest forest in Braj. And that forest encompasses everything from where the city of present-day Vrindavan is, all the way like to Govardhan, Radhakund, like that. And so this cow, interesting story, I love this story. This cow actually was set out to pasture by her master, who happened to be a Brahmin. And she was enjoying the grass. And then along comes a tiger. And the tiger begins to say the Prasadam prayer. Or not exactly, it's not grains. The tiger says, I got you. And Bahula is actually very upset. Not for her own safety, because she's a great devotee of the Lord, but she's upset for the safety of her poor little calf. And her poor little calf is hungry, waiting for milk. So, basically, she goes to the tiger, Bahula Uvacha, and says to the tiger, please let me feed my calf. I will come back. Now, usually you don't trust someone if they say that. So a criminal puts a gun to my head and says, I'm going to kill you. And I said, please let me give Sunday feast class first. And then then you can come and kill me, take my money, but not right now. I have something to do. So it doesn't work like that. But this is Vrindavan, where even the tigers have some sanity. So the tiger said, how can I trust you? And Bahula said, you can trust me because I'm a devotee. And so she goes, feeds her calf, comes back. And there's actually two versions of the story. One version is that Krishna appears, and the other version is the tiger is transformed into Krishna. The tiger was Krishna. Actually, several different versions. Anyway, this is a story in the Puranas. I'm not just making up this story. And so, very, very auspicious story. And Krishna saves Bahula, and later on, she became situated in the spiritual world by Krishna's mercy. So this happened, and also it's very auspicious to bathe in Radhakund. So, however, if we consult Shastra, we actually see Shastra, and I'm going to give some quotes from Shastra. And I thought it's an important point to make so we know whether we're right or wrong about something? Isn't it important? I mean, in my line of work, what is my work? Sannyasi, sannyasi. I better be right about spiritual things. Material things, I can be wrong about. That's all right. But spiritual things, when I talk about something, I have to speak from Shastra. People have to be able to ask me, where did you get that information from? I mean, it's a difficult line of work. Well, it's fun, too. But as you could see, I'm enjoying. But anyway, so it's a difficult line of work because you always have to speak according to Shastra. You could put, like I'm doing right now, I'm putting Shastra into modern language and, telling a few little jokes in the meantime just to keep everybody attentive because otherwise you'll all fall asleep, which is usually what happens in class. So, therefore, but everything I'm saying is given to me by Prabhupada, is from the Bhagavad Gita, is from the different literatures of the Goswamis. So here's Shastra, and actually I have some quotes, which I need my glasses for. So, there's quotes from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. There's quotes from Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. There's quotes from Srila Jiva Goswami about Radhakund. And of course, Radhakund is the most exalted place anywhere. It is as dear, or she is as dear to Krishna as Srimati Radharani is. If we read the Upadeshamrita, we'll see this. So we want to keep Radhakund on our heads and be very, very careful when we go there. Usually when I go to Radhakund, I sprinkle water on my head from Radhakund. And even many of the sadhus at Radhakund, they live there and they take a lota, which is a sort of like a vase, a small vase, and they pour on their heads rather than putting their feet into Radhakund. So, very, very sacred place. So, let's read some commentaries and statements by the acharyas. First of all, I want to preface that by saying that Radhakund appeared on the same day when the demon Arishtashura was killed. So that's how we can figure out what day Radhakund appeared on. So Srila Jiva Goswami, who we're going to quote from first, and we're going to give a little Sanskrit here, specifies that Arishtashura was killed on the full moon night in the month of Chaitra, March, April. On the same spring night, Radhakund and Shyamakund were manifested. So here's the quotes. And I can give the Sanskrit just to verify what I'm saying. Atakadache lohitayamanisayam martandarasmi mandale namnar rishita sarvadvisha darishta sarvatra ranghasa Janghan Yamana Sarvam Chagna Jagni Yamana Shrimatam Goshta Dvarantam Ajama Ajagama. One evening, actually from now on I'll just read the English. When the sun rays were reddish, the enemy of the demigods by the name of Rishta madly rushed about, frightening the cows, came to the entrance into beautiful Braj. At that time, Balaram's younger brother, Sri Krishna, noticing that the full moon day conjoined with the Chitra Nakshatra, here's the key. Actually, the Sanskrit for that is Yadahi Chitra Yuta Purna Chandram. Does everyone understand the Sanskrit? In this way, Yadahi Chitra Yuta Purna, the full moon of Chitra. Got that? So, and also that's reiterated by Purnimam, which means it's the Purnima. Purnima means full moon. At that time, Balaram's younger brother noticed Sri Krishna, noticing that the full moon day conjoined with the Chitra Nakshatra, came and being anxious to behold Govardhan Hill, who increases his happiness, went at some distance from Braj. So he's describing how Krishna, that was just a preliminary describing how Krishna had killed the Arishtashura demon. And so on the basis of the Varaha Purana and the Vishnu Purana, Jiva Goswami further describes this, and especially in his Lagu Vaishnava Toshini. So I'm giving Shastric references. Now, who are these Goswamis who I'm quoting right now? These are the first followers of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They're generally 6 Goswamis we hear about. Actually, there were 2 more, Lokanath and Bhugarba. But they were sent before the 6 Goswamis. So the first generation from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were the 6 Goswamis, and they were specifically empowered to present Krishna consciousness according to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instructions. And especially Rupa Goswami is considered to be ultimately our branch founder Acharya. Now, Prabhupada is the founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. But there's many branches. Prabhupada founded a particular branch, which we're members of. But Rupa Goswami is that's the overall presiding Acharya of that branch, and his associates, such as Jiva Goswami, who we just quoted, were also empowered by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Jiva Goswami is considered to be one of the most erudite, if not the most erudite scholars of all time. In Benares University, there's a whole Sanskrit school named after him. And if you read especially the Shats Sandarbhas, I don't know if anyone's heard of those books before, but they're 6 books, starting out with what I talked about at the beginning of class, which is Epistemology, how do you know what you know? It's a really thick book, and he describes in great detail the different methods of knowing and what is the perfect method of knowing. Of course, he comes to the conclusion that the perfect method of knowing things, according to our philosophy, is the Srimad Bhagavatam. That's his conclusion. And other methods of knowing, they can support or supplement or enhance the Srimad Bhagavatam's presentation. So in his Lagu Vaishnava Toshini, that means Jiva Goswami's commentary on the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Sanskrit is Ekadasha Chaitra Purna Mashyam Arishtavada, which means Arishtashura was killed on the full moon day in the month of Chaitra, which means March and April, during Krishna's 11th year. The month Chaitra comes next after Falgun. So it is 1 month after Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in the Falguna Purnima, the full moon day of the month of Purnima. But there are injunctions, not a but, I hate to use the word but. At the same time, there are injunctions that one should bathe during Bahulastami. This is from the Mathura Mahatmya, but the injunctions don't state that it's Radhakunda's appearance. Near delightful Govardhan Hill, actually I should read the Sanskrit. Govardhan Giro Ramye Radhakundam Priyam Hare Kartike Bohulastam Yam Tachasnatva Hare Priyaha Naro Bhakta Bhavet Vipras Tadandi Tasha Patosanam. Near delightful Govardhan Hill, there's a pond of Srimati Radharani, which is very dear to Lord Hari. O Brahmanas, if a person bathes there on Bahulastami during the month of Kartika, he will become very dear to Lord Hari, because such bath gives great happiness to the Lord. So, that's the good. It's all good. So, having taken that bath, another verse, In that pond on the 8th lunar day of the month of Kartika, one should worship Lord Janardana. Then the Lord will be pleased with such a person in the same way as he is pleased when one worships him on the Ekadashi day. And so that's how we know what we know. I mean, that's really the point I'm trying to make. Not trying to dissuade you from thinking that Balastami is Radhakunda's appearance, because in one sense every day is Radhakunda's appearance. And we can worship Radhakunda every day and take Radhakunda on our head. But it's very important to understand the principle that I'm making, not just the specific example. And the principle is, how do you know what you know? You go to the authority, which ultimately has to come down from Krishna. And we know that even if you receive a mantra that doesn't come from disciplic succession, then in the Haribhakto Shrudaya, it states that if one receives a mantra not from the disciplic succession, te nishpala mataha, then it will not be effective. That's why you can take some mantras, I know devotees do this sometimes, take some mantras from the Atharva Veda for creating a Brahmastra. You know what a Brahmastra is? Brahmastra is like more powerful than an atomic bomb, but really focused. Wouldn't it be nice to have? I mean, I could solve all the world's problems right now, you know. Go to Ukraine or something like that, and just problem solved. Get rid of all the bad guys. But even if I knew the mantras, which I don't, it wouldn't be effective. It wouldn't work. Because the mantra has to be given by disciplic succession. And the Hare Krishna mantra, of course, we're very fortunate, it has been given to all of us by the mercy of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Now, of course, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu preached that as the Yuga Dharma. And it's given to us by the mercy of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, for our benefit. So we've received it through disciplic succession. You know, it's the Shuddha Nam. Of course, we understand Namabash means anybody can chant, even if you haven't received it through disciplic succession, but it won't give you pure love of God, won't bring you to the perfectional platform. So this connection, it's like electric. You have to be connected to the powerhouse through the proper wiring. You know, even if your powerhouse is good, and the plug in the wall is good, and your fan is good, if there's some break, what do they say? A chain is only as strong as its weakest link, right? If there's some break, you just don't have it. There's no spiritual potency. And as far as knowledge, it's very important to understand that. That's why Prabhupada was so adamant in stating that we have the absolute truth. I mean, I know many people say we have the absolute truth, but Prabhupada could make reference. It wasn't a new philosophy. It was the same philosophy, same understanding, but packaged for the people in this in the Western world especially, just like we have Prabhupada's Pranam Mantra. Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarni. Packaged so that we can understand in the Western world, and also in India, so people can understand. That's it. But there was nothing different. And everything Prabhupada said, you know, philosophical points, what we call Siddhanta, Tattva, Ras, Bhav, these are all fancy words. Siddhanta means perfect conclusion. Ras means the understanding of different relationships, or the taste of different relationships with Krishna. Bhav means the emotions, the analysis of emotions. All of these things that Prabhupada taught us are perfect. And that's why I joined the Krishna Conscious Movement. I was actually exposed to not all the religions, there's billions, anyway, That would be crazy. I was exposed to the world's major religions. I researched them all, even read the Bhagavad Gita. Didn't understand a word of it before I got Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. It was an English translation. That's what, still didn't understand. And then as soon as we heard Prabhupada chanting, as soon as we read the Bhagavad Gita given to us by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, at that point, everything just like became clear. It's like putting on the glasses. Everything became clear. Don't worry, I can see without them. So it's only when reading that I need glasses. So that was my point for today, and I guess that takes up the whole class time. Epistemology. How do you know what you know, and why are we so fixed, determined, convinced that we have the absolute truth? And we're not saying that other people don't have, there's not a criticism of anyone else, but we should always be ready to ask people the question, how do you know what you know? That's all. It's very simple. How do you know what you know? Well, my mother taught me. I heard it from the grapevine, as they say. Or, that's history, or it makes sense. There's many different ways. Or seeing is believing. Like that. We know what we know, absolutely, because it's coming from God through the authorized representatives. Okay, I think that's all we have time for today. I hadn't planned on speaking about this whole subject matter. I was going to go to the Bhagavad Gita, but because we have this whole summary I wanted to do today, but I think it's a good Kartik-type presentation. Because as everybody knows, we've gone through the whole Bhagavad Gita and analyzed each and every topic, each and every chapter according to the topics presented in that chapter. So I thought I would do chapter 3 today, but no time for that. So any questions or comments about the subject matter of what we call, this is a big word, you can use it in everybody, epistemology. Ology means the study of knowledge. So any questions or comments does anyone have about these subject matters? Yes, Mr. Gopal. Where does our faith come? Well, we have to see where the Shastra comes from. It's not, there's so many books. Thank you for bringing that point. So, bringing up that point. There's so many books and so many scriptures and everything like that. So one has to be able to analyze, who spoke that Shastra? Was it passed down through disciplic succession? Was it passed down by pure personalities? There's many literatures, let's say some of the Puranas that haven't been passed down through disciplic succession, and some of those Puranas have had things taken out or put in. So that's why the concept of disciplic succession is very important. You have Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu. Just like in the government, which doesn't work in the government now, you have judicial, executive, legislative, right? It seems like sometimes the person in the executive stacks the judicial branch. Anyway, not getting into that so much. Sometimes it happens like that. So, but ostensibly, there's supposed to be checks and balances. How do you know what you know? We can check and balance. How do you know who's a pure devotee? How do you know who's a bona fide guru? Not because, he walks on water. Right? Ravana was able to walk in the air, right? Not walk, he was able to fly. Many of you would say, wow, Guru Maharaj, Ravana. Right? Wow. Yeah, because, obviously you see someone flying through the air, you think he must either be an incarnation or something. But he was a demon, a Rakshasa. So you have to be careful, because sometimes, we think that if someone has, they really, glows like with 10,000 watts, not 10,000 lumens, sorry, got it wrong, then they must be, bona fide. So one has to use their intelligence. Use your intelligence. Intelligence means to be able to discern, to ascertain these things. And so, Shastra is the same thing. Because you may find what is ostensibly Shastra, but it hasn't been passed down to cyclic succession. It's maybe been altered. Even Sripad Madhvacharya, who was a pure devotee of the Lord, he stated that the Mahabharata has been tampered with. He has this interesting commentary on the Mahabharata called the Tatparata Nirnaya. I don't know if anyone's heard of that before. Anyway, little information. And he says that things have been taken out, put in. There's 64 different versions of the Mahabharata. The general story is always there. There's the Pandavas, there's the Kurus, the bad guys and the good guys. I got that reversed. Oops. The good guys and the bad guys. Depends on your perspective. So, and Krishna is the best person in the Mahabharata. So one has to see, like Bhagavatam has been passed down to cyclic succession, Bhagavad Gita has been passed down into cyclic succession. So one has to be careful with one's beliefs, isn't it? So, good point, Mr. Gopal. Yes, Rishikesh. Well, I think you have to examine each one. Yeah. You have to see if they actually have an unbroken chain of disciplic succession, or the knowledge they're presenting is different from what the original Acharya Krishna presented or God presented. Generally, you'll find that there's, in most, I wouldn't say religions, but most spiritual beliefs, that there has been some change from the original knowledge that was given. Generally, you'll find that. So I think you examine with your intelligence. Was the knowledge originally given by God? Has the basic philosophy been unchanged? Basic philosophy means what we said, the Siddhanta. Tattva means like the different categories. I didn't describe that before. The different categories of Krishna and his energies, and the jiva souls, like that. That's what tattva is, jiva tattva, Vishnu tattva, Shakti tattva, like that. So one has to use their intelligence. And certainly in my search for God, I utilized intelligence and analyze things like that. And that's why I came to Krishna consciousness. Because I did it voluntarily. I wasn't born in Krishna consciousness, unfortunately. But I did analyze. And this wasn't the spiritual path of my birth. That's true. But then I chose. And specifically because Prabhupada presented the absolute truth, not because of sentiment. Because I wouldn't have just done it sentimentally. Does that make sense? Okay, so we have a nice presentation by one of our youth. The youth are getting old. So thank you very much. All glories to His Divine Grace. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So let's thank His Holiness Bir Krishna Goswami Maharaj for the wonderful class and the presentation of how do we know what we know, right? So let's thank His Holiness Bir Krishna Goswami Maharaj. Hariva!
Just one more fact I just want to add, that Lord Chaitanya, when he discovered Radhakund and Shyamakund, it was at the end of Kartik, according to the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So some people say, well, it was during Balasmi. No, it was actually, he arrived in Vrindavan on the Purnima, the last day of Kartik. It's described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And first he went to Mathura anyway.
Thank you, Maharaj.
You learned something.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. So we'll have announcements about our big upcoming festival. Next Sunday we have big grand Diwali Govardhan Puja celebrations. So we'll have a few more announcements. But right now we'll start with our youth presentation. The presentation will be by Suvarna Radhika. Haribo!
Haribo!
And it's so enlivening to see the youth share their realizations. It's always, very eager. We are very eager to hear the youth. So thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. I'm Suvarna Radhika Devi Dasi, and today I'm going to be sharing my experiences on the importance of association. First, I'd like to begin by offering my obeisances to my Gurudev, Srila Prabhupada, the Lordships, and all the assembled Vaishnavas. Thank you all for being here. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha Kalpaturubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So to understand the importance of association, we have to first understand the effect of association. Basically, we are the sum of our closest association. It's the people who we hang around the most that help us, determine how our actions, our decisions, and our thoughts will be like. So that's why it's really important to choose the right association. So to some extent, we can choose how we want to be by choosing the right people to hang out with. And that brings us to the point that different people bring out different sides in you. So try to hang with the people who bring out the best in you so that you can be the best version of yourself at all times. Some Shastric examples of how association is really important and can make or break you as a person. So first we have Dvivida. Dvivida was first a minister in King Sugriva's monkey army, and he served Lord Ram in the Ramayana. But later, that same Dvivida fought with Lord Balaram. And this was because he fell down due to bad association of his demon friends like Narakasura and so on. And another classic example of association is Jagai and Madai. Jagai and Madai were formerly known as Jagannath and Madhava. They were born in Brahmin families, but early on, they got into bad association, making them the abominable people that we know them as. But thankfully, they were able to meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu, and in that same time, they were also able to get lifted and liberated into Krishna consciousness. And another example is Prahlad Maharaj and his friends. All his schoolmates were the children of demons, but still, by the association of one acquaintance, Sri Prahlad Maharaj, they were all able to become devotees. So by these examples, we can understand just by the limited association of such exalted devotees, it can change you as a person. And that brings us to the verse. What would a presentation on association be without this famous verse? Everyone can recite with me. Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastra Koi, Lava Matra Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. Basically, this verse is saying that in the revealed scriptures, it says that Lava Matra Sadhu Sangha, the momentary association of a pure devotee, can give you all perfection in life. And that was seen in the previous examples I explained in the Shastras. So the next part of my presentation is actually a compilation of some notes I've been taking throughout the weeks on how I've been feeling trying to navigate through both worlds that I face, like my school life versus my temple life. And here are some things I've been feeling. So at times I felt out of place in both at hanging out with school friends and being at temple, like hanging out with people at school. You think you all go out, you think, oh, shouldn't I be having fun now? But then I'm like, wait, I think I usually have more fun dancing in kirtan But at the same time, when I'm around and when I'm at temple, I look at everyone else. I'm like, man, I don't feel like the best devotee. Like, look at this devotee; they're so much better than me. So there's been times I felt out of place in both worlds, and then also trying to find the right balance in both places. And then, of course, like maintaining that self-control, especially at school, because everyone might be doing something, but I know as a devotee, like that isn't very conducive to my standards as a devotee. I don't want to do that. So maintaining that self-control at all times can be difficult, but it keeps me happy at the end of the day. And then also just not getting into that peer pressure that comes under self-control. And then at times it can be easy to get distracted from my priorities when I'm hanging out with people. Sometimes I forget, wait, I'm a devotee. I need to go home and chant my rounds, focus on my bhakti. And again, it can be draining and sometimes even confusing trying to switch between both worlds. Like, for example, last year after taking initiation, I think it was on Halloween. I was I got initiated. We went to Harinam. It was blissful. It was an amazing night. And then the next day, Monday, it was school. And you would think the day after your initiation, you want to get up at 5, chant all your rounds. You're newly initiated, No, I woke up late, didn't chant a single round, missed my bus, and go to school. And then during class, I'm like, why am I even here? Didn't I get initiated last night? And it's so funny so interesting to see how I have to switch accordingly between both worlds. Anyways. There's definitely solutions to this, trying to navigate through both the worlds. And I feel that introspection has really helped me because there's no way I can fit completely to both the standards of either side. So trying to find what's suitable for me through introspection helps me, like practice bhakti in a way that I feel I can get closest to Krishna by. And also another thing to help not feel as drained or confused is by embracing both my worlds, not trying to force them to keep it separate. Because I feel like trying to switch, I shouldn't have to try to switch actually. It's just me. I'm a devotee, and I also go to school, and I should just embrace that both. And actually, I can use both sides to help me as a person. As a devotee, I can use my connections with like the outside world. I know what people like, what the trends are, and I can use that in my preaching to be more relatable. Because then they'll be able to connect with me and be like, oh, devotees are not that like far-fetched. They're still like everyone else. And in the same way, I can apply my principles in bhakti when I'm outside in the world. And to maintain my self-control and not get too entangled in the Maya and what everyone else is doing. And then about like choosing the right association, finding sustainable relationships is really important. And one way you can do that is by this nourishment check I heard in a podcast a couple months ago, which I've been practicing. So basically it's when after hanging out with anybody, you can just take a minute or so just to like reflect on how do you feel. Do I feel more nourished? Do I feel more drained after hanging out with this person? And based on that evaluation, you can try to hang out with people who you feel more nourished around and try to like maintain some distance around people who you feel drained with. And this way you can build the best, closest association so that you can be the best version of yourself. And again, finding like-minded association is really helpful when choosing association. Because when you find people who are like you, who believe in the same things, who have the same energy as you, it can be less draining to hang out with them, and also it reduces conflict, I feel. And then, without being said, of course, having that constant, sincere devotee association to keep you in check all the time. Like for me, I might be at school 5 days of the week, but every Sunday, I get to have that, Krishna jump start to my week, coming to the Sunday feast, talking to the youth, and just gathering all my, getting ready for the week. And of course, like throughout the week, like listening to lectures, even talking to your devotee friends can help you replenish your bhakti as needed, so that you don't get distracted when you're trying to navigate through the world. And another important verse to mention when talking about association, in Nectar of Instruction, verse 4, it states, Dadati pratigurnati guhyam akhyati prichiti bhungte bhojyate cheva shadvidam priti lakshanam. Basically, these are the 6 loving exchanges between a devotee. And I'd actually like to focus mostly on Guhya Makyati Prichiti, because I felt like that's helped me most. And I just feel like when you are able to like reveal to devotees how you feel, you know, your close devotees, it really builds your relationship with devotees. And also even at school, like the people who you feel close to, just revealing your mind around the right people can really help you. You can get the right advice, you can hear about their problems, learn from that, and that's really important in association. And then how to find your happy people. I described how you can do that a lot in the previous slide, but another like a little list or like a check you could use is like, do I want to hang around positive or negative people? Obviously positive people. So within those positive people, who are the people in the mode of goodness I can be with, so I can develop their like good qualities? And within those mode of people in the mode of goodness, who are the spiritual people who also practice spiritual things like me, that I can relate to? And then within the group of spiritual people, who are the devotees who are also trying to get closer to Krishna like I am? So hanging out with them is good. And yeah, like having this good devotee association is like a fence, so that you don't, get too entangled into Maya. And another important note that I've noticed, especially in going to school and stuff, focus on feeling happy instead of looking happy. A big part of finding good association is finding where you feel genuinely happy. Like for example, in high school, you can see those popular groups of people. You might look cool to be a part of them. You might look happy being a part of them, but you realize once you're a part of them, man, they're kind of shallow. Is this even fun being with them? I feel more fake. But then when you're around a group of people, they might not be as well known. At least you're having fun. At least you might not look cool, but you might look kind of stupid, but at least you're having fun. That's all that matters. And at the end of the day, if you're objective, some people's objective is to look cool. But like instead of trying to look cool but be sad, it's better to genuinely be happy, because everyone's just trying to be happy. So when you look so happy, everyone's like, oh, I want to be like that. But that doesn't have to be your focus. Just try to be happy. And then another important part of close association is your environment at home, because those are the people you're spending the most time around. And I'm very lucky to have an amazing family that's very nurturing. And some things that have made me feel that way in my home environment is that feeling accepted and comfortable being yourself at home is really important. Having good communication with your family members is really good, because you don't want to have like tough relationships at home, because that can affect you everywhere else. And then being open to hearing one another, helping one another at all times, being supported even when they make mistakes, always being for one another, supporting each other's interests. And another thing, as a teenager, I can say one thing my parents have done is they haven't ever forced anything on me, even like bhakti. I feel like they've always just tried to, all they did was take me to temple. And within temple, I found happiness in that. They never forced anything. They never forced me to come to temple. But having found that happiness in temple, I've wanted to always come there. And naturally, they've been able to like discipline me in that way. So once they are able to build a foundation, then we're able to make good choices naturally. And then, of course, practicing bhakti together as a family keeps, a family that prays together stays together. So practicing bhakti as a family is always good. And then, of course, talking about yourself. Self-care is really important. Always stay positive, nurture your body and mind. And you can do that by knowing when to take breaks, exercising, being kind, saying nice words to yourself. And then another thing is not lying to yourself. Like, let's say you're setting goals and you're promising yourself, I'm going to do this. And try to like keep up with those goals, because if you don't, you're going to build distrust within yourself. And at least try to trust yourself if you can't trust anybody else. Try to keep up your goals, Don't lie to yourself about like procrastinating and stuff. And then basically just understand yourself, encourage yourself, be a friend to yourself, being that trusting friend you want to yourself. And lastly, and most importantly, our association with Krishna, which is through service, with the medium of Guru, who gives us the qualification and understanding by which we can serve Krishna to the best of our ability. And we can serve Krishna through the 9 limbs of bhakti, which is Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, and Atmanivedanam. So in summary, I talked about the effective association and how we should choose the right people to hang out with so that we can be the best versions of ourselves. And I also discussed some problems in trying to navigate between our 2 types of association. And some solutions are embracing both sides, like self-introspection, checkups with like devotees, family members, to make sure your bhakti is constantly being replenished, and so you don't get too distracted, and finding the right association, having a good home environment, and taking care of yourself, and of course, always serving Krishna under the guidance of Guru.
Oh, I got it. Amazing. Very nice. Boy, so proud of you. And Prabhupada is proud of you. Your parents are proud of you. And anyway, that's a very nice presentation. You're a great preacher. I can retire now. I can just head for the hills, Govardhan Hill.
Thank you, Gurudev.
Yeah, you did a wonderful, wonderful presentation of Krishna. Anybody would want to be a devotee after hearing that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Suvarna Radhika. We normally like to take like two comments from the devotees here about the presentation. Anyone has any points they would like to share quickly? Yes, my Leela Shakti. Hariva.
Hare Krishna. I liked how you didn't start, like a lot of times we start with a verse, and the uniqueness of this presentation is you first give a background and just a quick introduction to get us into the hook, and then after that, the verse. And the verse, you didn't go too theoretical. You went practical. Even you didn't just like, you